What's up, everybody? Josh Armijo here. I hope everybody's doing good and well and stuff. I got an album review to do for you, and I'm going to be talking to you about the new album from the band Primitive Man, entitled Immersion. This is released on Relapse Records. Now, if you're not too familiar with this band, they are based out of Denver, Colorado, and the best way to describe the sound of this band would be a very sludgy, noisy, misanthropic style of doom metal. Yeah. Ever since this band's inception, this band has been nothing short of strong, consistent, and hateful in terms of their musical deliveries, their lyrical content, their vocal deliveries, and just overall being an intimidating force within extreme metal. Just an absolute monolithic beast of a band. And of course, this is one of the many musical projects of Ethan Lee McCarthy, who I consider to be a very prolific guy within extreme metal. Of course, if you know Ethan Lee McCarthy, you may know him best for his work with projects such as Vermin Womb, Death of Self, his Noise project with Many Blessings, and of course one of my all-time favorite grind-related projects of his with Clinging to the Trees of a Forest Fire. That was an amazing band, but nowadays he's dipping his full energy into projects like Primitive Man and so on and so forth, and just releasing a wide multitude of consistently strong, delectable nihilism here. Primitive Man has a really wide and ranging discography, from full-length albums such as Scorn and Caustic to demos like the self-titled and Steel Casket, to The Home Is Where the Hatred Is EP, to a series of really killer splits, most recently with the likes of bands such as Unearthly Trance and Hell. I mean, just really, really strong material from both of those bands, from all those bands respectively, especially on Primitive Man's side of things. But yeah, this is their third full-length album, and this is a follow-up to 2017's Caustic, which was an absolute monster of an album in every literal sense of the word. I honestly think it was their longest release to date, almost 77 minutes long, but it made every single minute worth it in terms of musical abilities, vocals, lyrics, just overall being awesome in terms of that album. So how are they going to follow up something that monstrous as Caustic? And yeah, they're following it up now with Immersion. It's 6 tracks, and it clocks in at around 36 minutes in length, so pretty much this is a return to a more short-form sort of album, but regardless of this being a shorter album once again, you still get what you know Primitive Man best for, and that is producing some absolutely tight-knit, raw, punishing, evil doom metal. And that's what you get here. The minute you hear the opening moments of the feedback with the lifer to the opening and closing moments of Consumption, you already know what you're going to be in for, and that is some serious Primitive Man business. And this business is absolutely good, I must say. Musically, it's just fantastic. I absolutely love these guitars. They are definitely some of the driving force that make an album like Immersion sound so good. These almost terrifying, buzzing sort of riffs that you hear throughout this entire album make this whole thing worth listening to over and over again. The lifer, menacing, foul, just some really, really strong guitar work going on here. The buzzing riffs, the doomy lead-ins, it's just all together wonderfully executed, wonderfully paced. The bass work on here is very good too. You definitely appreciate the more rattling bottom end of this album. It definitely holds its own amongst the tightness riffs that you hear throughout this entire record. I definitely think this is a very well executed and well played bass tone performance. The drumming on here is sensational too. I definitely like that. Since this is being a doom metal record, you're going to get the slow, methodically paced drum performance, the way the snare is hit, the way the fills come about, to the occasional blast beat here and there. This drum performance is definitely something that takes you for a thrill ride, and I definitely appreciate this drummer's stamina, patience, and endurance throughout this entire record, especially for some of the lengthy tracks, like once again going back to Menacing and going back to a track like Foul. Just some really, really strong stuff as far as the drums are concerned. And of course, you can't have a Primitive Man record without having some really shrill and noisy elements in this record. I believe the middle part of the beginning of the second half of this record starts off with a really noisy and chaotic sort of interlude, very harsh power electronics orientated sort of stuff. You hear that in not only just that track, but you hear it in bits and spurts throughout this album, in addition to the elements where you hear just feedback. I definitely think that those elements work out well to this band's advantage. And when it comes to the vocals, of course, if you know Ethan's vocal style, it's very, very commanding, very guttural, very primal. Of course, nowadays he growls in a much deeper, darker register, and I definitely think his vocals are as intimidating as can be here. He definitely commands your attention. He wants you to feel his pain. He wants you to feel everything that's going on in his mind and in the world, and he executes that so perfectly with his vocal deliveries. Just the torment and the anguish in his vocal deliveries make for something incredibly powerful stuff to listen to. I definitely love whenever Ethan reaches his lower growling register, just bellowing hatefulness coming from his voice, and I definitely think he delivers that in such tremendous spades here with this album. So overall, this is another really fantastic addition to the Primitive Man discography. This band continues to remain on top of their game as far as doom metal is concerned. I don't know if I like this one more than I did Caustic, but I definitely think Immersion stands out on its own feet. It definitely gets the job done, and it makes you appreciate what type of a band Primitive Man is. If you're a fan of what this band has put out previously, I really don't see why you wouldn't enjoy something like Immersion. I definitely think that this is a great, great record, and hopefully we get more stuff from Primitive Man in the years to come. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave you some links in the description box as to how you can get a hold of this album and listen to it. I will leave you a link to the Primitive Man Bandcamp page where you can listen to this album in its entirety, hear it for yourself, and be your own judge as to whether you think it's worthy of being purchased or not. You can stream it, buy it digitally. It is available physically as a CD and 12-inch vinyl. I believe this album is still readily available. So yeah, there's a lot of ways to get a hold of this album. So again, the album is Immersion by Primitive Man. This is released on Relapse Records. Definitely check this one out. And for a score, I'm going to give this a very solid 8.5 out of 10. Very wildly entertaining, in fearful doom metal record. So if you guys happen to have heard this album, definitely let me know what you think about it, how you feel about it, and how you think it compares to previous Primitive Man releases. Or any of you guys into Primitive Man, definitely let me know. I'm going to conclude this review. Thanks a lot for watching. Thanks for checking out my channel. Until the next time, Army Hell out.